When Daniel picked up his wife's phone, he expected a harmless group chat. What he found was a cold-blooded loyalty test, encouraged by her friends. Instead of confronting her, he played along, calm, calculated, and quiet. What happened next turned the game upside down, and no one saw the ending coming. Daniel had always believed trust wasn't something you monitored, it was something you gave. Maybe that's why he didn't think twice when Claire left her phone on the couch. They'd been married for nearly 4 years, and while the honeymoon stage had worn off, the routine felt solid. They weren't fireworks anymore, but they were stable, comfortable. At least that's what he thought. The phone buzzed, just a harmless notification. Daniel picked it up absent-mindedly, intending to silence it. Instead, he saw a preview of a group chat that stopped him cold. Make it a game. Pull away and see what he does. Test him now before it's too late. At first, he thought he was misunderstanding. A joke between friends? Then he saw Claire's reply from earlier that day. Let's see how much he really values me when I disappear for a while. It felt like someone had thrown ice water down his back. Claire wasn't just drifting emotionally. She was playing a role, strategically, with backup. Seconds later, she walked in. He had already placed the phone back down. She didn't ask, or maybe she saw and didn't care. When their eyes met, there was a smirk, just a flicker, but enough for Daniel to realize this wasn't some passive phase in their relationship. This was a test, one she expected him to fail. He asked her carefully why she was smiling. She answered, "Because I know something you don't." It wasn't what she said that hit him, it was how she said it. Calm, cool, as if she already knew how this chapter ended. That night, Daniel didn't sleep much. He lay in bed next to her, silent, playing every moment back in his mind. The dinners where she seemed disinterested, the sudden new interest in me-time, the unexplained weekends with her friends. All at once, it made sense. But instead of reacting, he planned. By morning, he had made up his mind. He wasn't going to confront her. He wasn't going to beg, plead, or get angry. She wanted a reaction, and that was the one thing she wouldn't get. At 7:30 a.m., Daniel stood in the kitchen flipping eggs like it was any other day. Coffee black for him, oat milk for her. Claire walked in wearing a robe and said, "Smells good." Like nothing had changed, like she wasn't quietly watching his every move, waiting for him to crack. She sat at the counter, and after a long pause, said the words he knew were coming. "I've been thinking, maybe I need some space, just a little time to figure myself out." Scripted, word for word, straight from the group chat. Daniel nodded, cutting into his eggs. "Funny, I've been thinking the same thing." That caught her off guard. Her fork paused. "You have?" "Yeah," he said casually. "I think we've both changed. Maybe space is exactly what we need." She blinked, confused. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. He was supposed to panic. Instead, he agreed, quietly, calmly, as if he'd been waiting for her to say it. "Are you sure this is what you want?" she asked, trying to read his face. "I think it's what you want," he replied. "And I've learned not to stand in your way once your mind's made up." The silence between them stretched long and sharp. You could hear the clock ticking on the wall, something Daniel had never noticed before. Now it echoed. He stood up, rinsed his plate, and said, "I'll start looking for a place today." Claire didn't answer. She just stared at her untouched food. By late afternoon, Daniel had signed the lease on a small apartment across town. 1 bedroom, no frills, but it had something he hadn't felt in months. Clarity. He brought only what he needed. A mattress, a laptop, a few clothes. No wedding photo. No lingering scent of Claire's vanilla candles. This wasn't a breakdown. It was a reset. That night, Daniel sat on the floor, eating cheap takeout, watching the city lights blink through the blinds. He wasn't sad. He wasn't even angry. He felt still, like a storm had passed, and he was finally dry. Over the next few days, he reconnected with old friends. The ones Claire had gradually pulled him away from under the guise of priorities and image. They played poker on rooftops, grilled steaks, shared stories. One of them snapped a picture. Daniel laughing, relaxed, sitting next to a woman he barely knew. He knew the photo would make its way online. He didn't ask them to take it down. Back at her place, Claire's silence was deafening. No calls, no messages. But Daniel knew she was watching, because her Instagram told him everything. First, a story at yoga, then a perfectly staged coffee shop selfie, then a night out with friends, all smiles, no captions. Her version of peace. She was playing her role. But Daniel wasn't playing anymore. He was living. And the silence he gave her? That wasn't defeat. It was power. It had been 4 days since Daniel moved out, and each one felt like progress. He wasn't healing from heartbreak. He was watching a mask peel itself off. Claire had made her move thinking he'd collapse without her. Instead, he reemerged stronger. On day 5, another photo surfaced. Not from him, from a friend's birthday dinner. Daniel sat between 2 women, neither of whom he was romantically involved with. He wasn't even the focus of the shot. But he was smiling, listening, at ease. The image found its way online. Again, Daniel said nothing. He didn't need to. Claire noticed. He knew she did because, within hours, her own feed exploded. Another yoga pose. A book quote about growth. Then a group selfie captioned, "Healing in motion." It was performative. All of it. But it told Daniel one thing. She was watching. Carefully. Then came the call. It was a Wednesday afternoon, and Daniel was standing in the pasta aisle, comparing 2 jars of marinara. His phone buzzed. He glanced down. Claire. He let it ring twice, then picked up. "Hey!" There was a pause. Background noise. Wind? Traffic? "Hey!" she replied. "How are you?" "I'm good," he said, placing the cheaper jar in his basket. "Just grocery shopping." "You?" She hesitated. "I'm okay. It's been quiet." He let her sit in that silence for a few seconds. "Yeah, it has." She cleared her throat. "So, how's the new place?" "Peaceful. Feels good to breathe a little." She didn't respond right away. Then came the real question, wrapped in small talk. "You sound happy." He smiled, even though she couldn't see it. "I am." Claire didn't know what to do with that. She was expecting sadness. Or at least hesitation. But Daniel gave her none. "I just wanted to check in," she said. "See how you're doing. You know, without me." He could hear it now. She wasn't calling to reconnect. She was probing, measuring the gap, testing the waters of her own failed experiment. "Honestly," Daniel said, moving toward checkout, "I've been doing great, sleeping better, reconnecting with people. I didn't realize how much I missed just existing without pressure." Another pause. "I figured you'd be, I don't know, missing things more." "Oh, I do," he said. "But not what you think." She didn't ask what he meant. She didn't want that answer. "Well, maybe we can catch up," she offered quickly, almost too quickly. "Talk through some things." "Sure," he replied. "Let me know when." "What about tomorrow?" she asked. "Coffee?" He didn't say yes. "Not immediately. I've got a few things going on. I'll text you." That shift in dynamic? It landed hard. For the first time, Claire wasn't being chased. She was being scheduled if time allowed. 2 days later, she knocked on his door. No warning, no message, just her standing outside waiting. Daniel opened it and stepped aside. She walked in slowly, scanning the space like it might hold answers. Didn't. It only confirmed what she feared. He was fine without her. They sat. He poured tea, the brand she used to drink. Not to be sentimental, just to prove he hadn't forgotten. "You wanted to talk?" he asked, sitting across from her. She nodded. "I've been thinking. About everything. About us." He waited. "At first," she said, "I thought I needed space. But I realize now. I needed clarity. And what I've realized is, I don't want to lose what we had." Daniel leaned back, arms crossed. "You didn't ask for clarity, Claire. You staged a test. A manipulation encouraged by your friends. You walked out expecting me to chase you." Her head lowered. "I know. I thought it was harmless." They made it sound harmless. Just a little game. If you missed me, I'd know we were still strong. But I didn't play, he said. I left. And that scared me, she whispered. You didn't beg. You didn't even react. It made me wonder if you ever cared. Daniel stood, walked to a drawer, and returned with a folder. He set it on the table between them. Her eyes flicked to it. What's that? Divorce papers, he said. Her face paled. They're not real, he added. But they could be. Just like your test felt real to me. That wasn't a fun experiment. It was betrayal. I needed you to understand how far this almost went. Claire stared at the folder, motionless. I needed to know, Daniel continued. If you're here now because you miss me, or because your plan didn't work. Tears came, not the performative kind. Real ones. Silent, unhidden. It backfired, she said. I thought I was proving something, but I just ruined everything. I'm so sorry. He didn't speak right away. Watching her like this, it wasn't satisfying. It wasn't even vindicating. It was just quiet. The kind of quiet that only follows damage. I told them, she continued. I cut them off. The ones who pushed this idea. I blocked the group chat. I want to fix this. But only if you want to. Daniel studied her carefully. He didn't see someone who was trying to regain control. He saw someone who had lost it, and realized what that meant too late. If we try again, he said slowly, there are conditions. No more advice from people who don't respect our relationship. No more manipulation. No more tests. She nodded. Done. They're gone. He didn't reach for her. He didn't move closer. This isn't forgiveness, Claire. It's consideration. And that's all I can offer right now. I'll take it, she whispered. As she left that day, Daniel sat with the fake papers still on the table. They weren't just a bluff. They were a mirror, showing both of them how close they'd come to an end they weren't ready for. What came next wasn't a restart. It was a choice. Rebuild or walk away. And Daniel wasn't ready to choose until the next part of his plan was complete. He wanted truth. Public truth. And Claire's friends? They were about to be invited to dinner. Daniel didn't want apologies whispered behind closed doors. He didn't want guilt turned into private promises. If this marriage was going to survive, there had to be accountability. Public, clear, and unforgettable. So he made a suggestion. Let's have dinner with them, he told Claire one morning. The ones who encouraged you to blow up our marriage. Claire hesitated. All of them, Daniel said. One dinner, one conversation. You don't get to rebuild on silence. She agreed. Nervously, but she agreed. They chose the location together, a popular rooftop restaurant. Trendy, polished, crowded enough to prevent a scene, but intimate enough to hear every word. Claire reached out. The invite was simple. Dinner. Just us. Want to talk. 3 said yes. Taylor, the loud one. Denise, the ringleader. Monica, the quiet observer who watched everything and said nothing. Daniel didn't need to ask which of them had first floated the test. It didn't matter. They all played a part. The night of the dinner, they arrived first. Daniel kept his energy even calm. He wasn't angry. He was focused. The women arrived 5 minutes later. Polite greetings, awkward hugs. Taylor glanced at Daniel, clearly surprised he was there. Denise smiled like it was a game. Monica didn't smile at all. Once seated, Taylor raised a glass. So, we're celebrating? A reconciliation? Claire looked at Daniel, unsure. He gave her a small nod. Something like that, she said. Dinner started light. Casual updates. Work, travel, books. Forced laughter. The tension was a wire running under the table. Everyone felt it. No one addressed it. Until Daniel did. He set down his fork, wiped his mouth, and looked directly at the 3 women. You know, he began. Claire told me everything. About the group chat, the advice, the test. 3 expressions shifted. Frozen. Surprised. Unreadable. Taylor blinked. That was just talk. Friends venting. Everyone does it. Denise leaned in smooth. Relationships go through phases. Sometimes friends help each other see things more clearly. Is that what you think that was? Daniel asked. Helping. Denise tilted her head. She wasn't happy. We gave her space to figure it out. Daniel's voice didn't rise. He didn't need volume to cut through. You told her to test me, to bait me, to pull away and see if I'd break. Taylor laughed nervously. It's not like she cheated or anything. No, she didn't, Daniel said. But she walked out because you told her to. And now I'm supposed to sit here, pretend like it was a harmless suggestion? Denise shrugged. She's her own person. She made the choice. Claire finally spoke, quiet but firm. No, I made the mistake. But you made it easy. All three turned to her. Claire kept going. I told you I just wanted to breathe. You turned it into strategy. Make him chase you. See how he reacts. Don't respond too quickly. You turned my marriage into a game. Monica rolled her eyes. You're overthinking this. No, Claire said louder now. I'm not. I almost lost my husband because I listened to people who saw drama as entertainment. Daniel watched the three women closely. He didn't expect confessions. He wanted exposure, and he was getting it. We're rebuilding, he said, but with boundaries. And the first one is this. No more advice from you. No more interference. You don't get to play puppet master anymore. Denise laughed once, bitter. So she cuts us off and we're the villains? No, Daniel said. You're just not part of the story anymore. Claire looked directly at Denise. I blocked the chat. I told you I needed space, not sabotage. I let you twist that. I'm fixing it now. Taylor pushed back her chair slightly. This is ridiculous. You're acting like we planned a divorce. You planned a reaction, Daniel replied. And when I didn't give it, you lost control. That wasn't advice. That was manipulation. And I don't let manipulators sit at my table. There was silence then. Real silence. No one touched their drinks. No one looked proud. Monica stood first. We should go. Taylor followed, muttering something under her breath. Denise lingered, one final look at Claire. You'll be back. When this falls apart again, you'll call. Claire's answer was immediate. I won't. Denise left. Daniel and Claire sat quietly for a moment. The tension had left with them. Claire reached for his hand. He let her. That was harder than I thought, she admitted. It needed to happen, Daniel said. She nodded. Thank you for not letting it slide. I'm not interested in half repairs, Daniel said. If we rebuild, it's real. And for the first time, Claire didn't ask for reassurance. She just sat there, steady. They didn't celebrate that night. There was no toasting, no dramatic kiss. But something important had shifted. For the first time, Daniel wasn't questioning Claire's loyalty. She'd chosen him. And she'd done it in front of the ones who tried to break them. The night after dinner, Daniel didn't sleep much. Not from tension, but from clarity. The public confrontation had changed something. It wasn't about embarrassing Claire's friends. It was about removing shadows. They dragged their marriage into chaos and assumed there'd be no fallout. Now, the silence they left behind was earned. Claire didn't try to sugarcoat what happened. She didn't rush into apologies or ask for praise. She sat beside him quietly in the car after dinner, eyes forward, saying only, "That was the right thing to do." Daniel nodded. Yeah, it was. When they got back to her place, still her place, she paused at the door. I can sleep in the guest room if that's easier. No, he said. Just don't lie to me anymore. She nodded. No excuses, no defense. Just acceptance. That moment hit harder than any apology. For the next few weeks, they didn't call it reconciliation. They didn't label anything. What they did was routine, intentional, steady, cautious. They started walking after dinner, just around the neighborhood. At first, they barely spoke. Then, slowly, conversation returned. Not about the past. Not yet. They talked about everyday things. Neighbors, work, a strange dog that followed them once. It wasn't exciting, but it was real. And real was enough. Daniel noticed changes, not big ones, but meaningful. Claire left her phone out more often. Face down, sometimes in another room. Once, when a message popped up and he saw a name he didn't recognize, she said, without being asked, "Blocked. Weeks ago. I don't talk to them anymore." He didn't respond. He didn't need to. She also started asking questions again. The kind she used to ask when they first started dating. "How was your day? What are you working on? Want to come with me to the store?" At first, they felt small. Then he realized this was effort. This was her way of rebuilding trust, not with grand gestures but with consistency. Daniel wasn't perfect either. He had walls up. He took longer to share things. He guarded his time, his energy, his emotional investment. But he wasn't cold, just careful. Rebuilding required both of them to show up. So, brick by brick, they did. One evening, Daniel was digging through a drawer looking for an old USB drive when he came across the fake divorce papers. He hadn't touched them since the night Claire came over. He almost tossed them. Then he didn't. Instead, he folded them, placed them in a small box, and wrote a single word on the lid. Lesson, not revenge, not punishment, just a reminder. Weeks turned into a month. The strange tension that used to fill their home began to fade. Not completely, but noticeably. Mornings started with simple rituals, coffee, small talk, occasional shared silence. Nothing dramatic. But peace doesn't need volume to be meaningful. Then one afternoon, Claire asked a question that surprised him. "Do you want to move back in?" He didn't answer right away. She didn't push. She just said, "Whenever you're ready." He took 3 more days. Then, on a quiet Saturday, Daniel brought back a few bags. Essentials only. No symbolic fresh start speech. No reset ceremony. Just toothbrushes, shirts, and a laptop. As he unpacked, he noticed that Claire had cleaned out drawer space for him. Not because he asked. Not because she wanted credit. Just because she expected him to belong there again. That was when he believed she meant it. One night, as they sat on the couch watching a documentary, Claire suddenly paused the TV. "I know we haven't talked much about it," she said. "But if there's anything else you want me to explain, I will." Daniel didn't respond immediately. Then, "What made you listen to them?" She didn't flinch. "I was bored. Not with you, with myself. I thought testing you would give me clarity. I thought you'd panic, prove something." He nodded slowly. "And what did you prove instead?" "That I was reckless. That I let people into our marriage who didn't care about either of us." He didn't say, "I forgive you." Not because he hadn't, but because forgiveness isn't a one-time sentence. It's shown, built, maintained. They didn't fall back into old habits. That version of their relationship was gone. What grew in its place was cautious but strong. They weren't the couple who finished each other's sentences. They were the couple who paused before speaking, made eye contact more often, and didn't assume they knew everything about each other. Even intimacy changed. It became quieter, slower, more thoughtful. There were no performance expectations, just presence. Daniel still saw his friends. Claire didn't ask where he was going or when he'd be back. And when she met up with coworkers or took solo time, she told him, not to ask permission but to stay open. They were becoming a team again. Trust didn't snap back like a rubber band. It returned like a muscle slowly rebuilt after an injury. Painful, but stronger. One evening, they hosted a small dinner with another couple, mutual friends who had no idea what they'd just gone through. After the guests left, Claire said, "You didn't mention anything about what happened." "It's ours," Daniel said. "Not everyone needs to know how we got here, just that we're here." She smiled slightly, not with triumph but relief. Later that night, Daniel stepped out onto the back porch and looked up at the sky. No fireworks, just stars, just quiet. He wasn't wondering if Claire still loved him. He wasn't wondering if she'd betray him again. He wasn't even thinking about the group chat. All he thought was, we made it out of that. Not because of luck, but because this time they were choosing each other for real. Daniel kept the box with the fake divorce papers on the top shelf of his closet. Not to hold on to the pain, but to remember the turning point. On the lid was a single word: lesson. And every time he saw it, he reminded himself that trust isn't something people are given. It's something people protect. A few months had passed since the night of that dinner. Life didn't change overnight. There was no celebratory moment where everything reset, no neat ribbon tying the mess together. Instead, what followed was steady work, quiet progress. There were still moments where old instincts flared up. Once, Claire didn't respond to a text for hours. Daniel felt his gut tense before realizing this wasn't the past. She wasn't pulling away. She was just busy. When she called later apologizing, he didn't mention how he felt. But the fact that she apologized without prompting told him enough. Another time, Daniel ran into Monica at a coffee shop. She noticed him, hesitated, then nodded and walked out. No words, no tension, just a ghost of a chapter that had closed. Claire never brought up her old friends again. Neither did he. The real change, though, wasn't in how they handled big events. It was how they approached the small ones. One Saturday, Daniel was working on a presentation. Claire came in, sat down beside him, and said nothing. Just sat, present, available, not expecting attention, just offering company. That hadn't happened in years. Another night, Daniel asked her what she thought their marriage looked like to outsiders now. "I don't care what it looks like," she said. "I care what it feels like. And right now, feels honest." That stuck with him. They weren't chasing perfection anymore. They were chasing something better, understanding. Daniel had also changed. He no longer tried to predict Claire's mood or manage her reactions. He gave space without fear. He didn't try to be impressive or always composed. He was honest, even when that honesty was uncomfortable. One night, over dinner, he said, "You know, sometimes I still think about leaving." Claire didn't panic. She just asked, "Why?" "Because I liked how it felt to not be responsible for anyone but myself." She nodded. "I get that. And I stayed," he added, "because I remembered what it used to feel like with us, before everything got complicated." "We're not going back there," she said. "I know," he replied, "but we can build something different, maybe better." And that's what they did. There was no dramatic second honeymoon. No social media post announcing their reconciliation. No confession in front of friends. The healing happened offstage, away from validation. They went on walks, cooked meals, watched shows, laughed more often. When they fought, and they still did, it was shorter, quieter. There was no threat of leaving, no weaponized silence. They had learned how to disagree without dismantling everything. Eventually, Daniel moved all his things back in. Slowly. He didn't need to test anything anymore. He just lived. One day, while cleaning out a drawer, Claire found the box labeled "Lesson." She opened it, saw the divorce papers, and looked at him. "You kept them?" Daniel shrugged. "They reminded me what this almost became." She didn't ask him to throw them out. She didn't try to justify her past again. She closed the box and placed it back. Not as a wound, as a record. Later that night, she said, "I don't know how I ever thought that test was going to make us stronger." "You didn't want stronger," he replied. "You wanted control." "I know," she said, "but now I want truth." He believed her. Claire's choices had nearly destroyed what they built. But she owned them. She changed her behavior, her circle, and her communication. And most importantly, she stopped performing. Daniel, in turn, chose not to punish her forever. He didn't hold her mistake over her head. He didn't use it as leverage. He let her rebuild, not because she deserved a clean slate, but because she was doing the work to earn it. The story didn't end with fireworks. It ended with a dinner where neither of them looked at their phones. It ended with Claire setting an extra alarm so Daniel wouldn't miss his morning meeting. It ended with a short note she left in his work bag that simply said, "Still choosing you." And that's how Daniel knew. He hadn't just won a game. He'd dismantled it. And in its place, they'd built something real. If you've made it this far, let me ask, what would you have done? Would you have walked away for good? Taken her back? Or done something completely different? Drop your thoughts in the comments, like the video, and don't forget to subscribe. More stories are coming. And not all of them end like this.